If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
A monumental breakthrough in the Middle East as Israel and Hamas reach a ceasefire agreement to pause the devastating 15-month war in Gaza.
Brooks, credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh, thank you.
In this video today, Trump scores a major win after the ceasefire deal has been announced between Hamas and Israel. Also, the Democrats suffer another humiliating loss as Pam Bondi sticks it to him during her confirmation hearing today. These stories and more in this video. But let's start with where Biden was answering questions about the ceasefire deal. Watch this.
Gaza now, as you were saying, the implementation of this deal will be in the hands of the next administration, and basically they will shape the future of Gaza. So how do you see this future? And also, how much credit do you give to the Trump team for this deal? Trump is already taking credit for it.
Well, you know, this is the exact framework of the deal I proposed back in May. Exact. And we got the world to endorse it. Secondly, it's America's support for Israel that helped them badly weaken Hamas and its backers and create the conditions for this deal. And thirdly, I knew this deal would have to be implemented by the next team, so I told my team to coordinate closely with the incoming team to make sure we're all speaking with the same voice, because that's what American presidents do.
In the how many Americans will be released when the hostages are being released?
All the exact detail of how many people are being held, how many bodies will be returned and less, will all be forthcoming. All of it, all of it. Thank you.
That this deal will hold.
I'm confident. Thank you.
Brooks, credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh, thank you.
Okay, President Biden's.
Okay, so let's get something straight. This is going to be a part of Joe Biden's legacy. He's definitely going to take credit for this. There's no question about that. And you wouldn't expect anything less. Now, if you did hear it in his answer, he had to painfully admit that his team did work with Trump's team because Trump obviously is the incoming president, and that's what presidents do. But let's not be naive here. We know the only thing that really was different from now compared to a year ago in May, that because that's when he says this ceasefire deal was proposed, is the threats coming from Trump. There's no question about that. Now, we know that Biden was reluctant to give Trump any type of credit for this ceasefire deal. However, a few moments later, the State Department actually did that by clearly stating that they couldn't get this done without Trump. Check this out.
When it comes to the involvement of President-elect Trump's team, it has been absolutely critical in getting this deal over the line. And it's been critical because, obviously, as I stand here today, this administration's term in office will expire in 5 days. I don't know if it's unprecedented to have envoys from an outgoing and an incoming administration sitting at the same table negotiating a ceasefire agreement of this kind. But if it's not unprecedented, it's certainly unusual. And we, of course, thank the Trump team for working with this on this ceasefire agreement. We think it's important that they were at the table.
Now, for some reason, the White House can't get on the same page because here is the press secretary, KJP, saying this about giving credit. Watch.
Even the Qatari prime minister in his remarks personally thanked Steve Witkoff, the incoming administration's Middle East envoy. So do Donald Trump and his team deserve any credit for this?
I mean, look, everyone is going to want some credit. Everybody's going to want some credit. Get that? That's how this goes when something good happens. Not unusual. It is not unusual at all. What I can say is the president got it done, right? That's what I can say. And what I could also say is that, and you said it in your question to me, is that there was a framework that was put forward. And it was put forward by the president back in May 31st of last year. And it was endorsed by the world.
Well, listen, guys, it doesn't matter if there's 5 days left in that presidency. She is still going to lie through the skin of her teeth every single time. I mean, it wouldn't have hurt you to just say, well, two things can be true. The president got it done, and also the envoy from the incoming administration, Steve Witkoff, played a huge role in that. Now, in the broader scheme of things, knowing that Trump issued that threat plenty of times, and now there is some level of a ceasefire deal on the table that is being agreed to, there's good news in that, right? However, there's a lot of things that is actually wrong with this deal that we're about to get into here shortly. And one of the key things centers around Joe Biden, who claimed in his speech that this was the same framework from last May. So the question is, what happened between May of last year and now? That's exactly what Fox News is talking about. Check this out.
What was interesting to me was that he said that they've been working with the incoming Trump transition team, that they've all been speaking with one voice, speaking as one team. But when asked about who gets the credit for this deal, him or Trump, he said this was the exact same deal that I proposed May 31st of this year, or last year, rather. He didn't give any of the credit to Trump. But remember what Trump said quite emphatically back on January 7th. Listen here.
If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East. Can you elaborate? And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone.
All right, so consider this for a moment. Biden said it's exactly the same deal that he proposed in May of last year, yet it doesn't get done until today. So what changed in that ensuing time period, with the exception of Trump saying multiple times, all hell will break loose in the Middle East if the hostages don't get released?
Now, there's a few things that we have to address about this entire ceasefire deal. Number one, this is not actually in the war whatsoever. Okay. Now, this is better than nothing. We will acknowledge that. Secondly, not all of the hostages are coming home. Okay. That is an issue there. And number three, there will be a lot of work that Trump and his team will still need to do in order to truly end that war. So we're still not even close to that. Okay. Now, here's what Ben Shapiro had to say about this. And I'm just going to kind of fast forward to the part that actually matters. So what does all of this mean? First, that some hostages will come home alive. This is an unmitigated good. It would have been excellent to get more hostages out, but that option was presumably unavailable given Hamas's radical and the waning health of many of the hostages. Secondly, the war will continue until Hamas has no control over Gaza. Trump's nominees have said as much. So has the Israeli government. The Trump team squared this circle. The Biden team undoubtedly wanted a permanent end to the conflict as a condition of hostage release. Team Trump presumably told Hamas that wasn't going to happen and that this was the best deal that they were likely to get. Now, other people are definitely celebrating this. As an example, Charlie Kirk said this, breaking 5 days before Trump becomes president, and Israel and Hamas have reached a ceasefire. The world knows Trump is coming. Dave Smith said this, I know this is a huge if at this point, but if Trump's envoy was successfully able to pressure Netanyahu to accept a ceasefire hostage release deal, and if that isn't ultimately offset by a major insane concession to the Israelis, such as allowing them to annex the West Bank, and it ultimately leads to an end to this tragic war, then Donald Trump will start his second term as legitimately an heroic president. It will be the best thing he's ever done in his life. If he can negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine as well, put the man on Mount Rushmore, let him take Lincoln's spot. Glenn Greenwald said this, I don't care what you think of Trump. I don't care what Trump's motives are or what else he promised Israel, which I'm sure is non-trivial. Anyone who causes an end to Israeli civilian destruction in Gaza has done a good thing, and there's no denying his key role. And this is what Trump had to say. This epic ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of a historic victory in November, as a signal to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. I am thrilled American and Israeli hostages will be returning home to be reunited with their families and loved ones. With this peace deal in place, my national security team, through the efforts of Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, will continue to work closely with Israel and other allies to make sure Gaza never again becomes a terrorist safe haven. We will continue promoting peace through strength throughout the region, and as we build upon the momentum of this ceasefire to further expand the historic Abraham Accords. This is only the beginning of great things to come for America and indeed the world. We have achieved so much without even being in the White House. Just imagine all of our wonderful things that will happen when I return to the White House and my administration is fully confirmed. so they can secure more victories of the United States. Now, as I said in the beginning of this video, this is a win for Trump because politically, this is what he ran on. He issued a clear warning that if the hostages are not returned, all hell would break loose. Now, we know not all hostages are being returned, to be fair, but this is a step in the right direction. Now, speaking of all hell breaking loose, you don't want that to happen with your health, which brings us to today's sponsor of this video, Brightcore Nutrition. Did you know that there's a war happening right now in your gut? It's a daily battle between good and bad bacteria. This matters because your gut determines your health. This is why Kimchi One from my friends at Brightcore Nutrition has the superfood capsule your body needs to win this war. Each capsule contains over 900 strains of beneficial bacteria that supports healthy digestion, fortifies your immune system, and helps detoxify your body. And yes, Kimchi One is 100% made in the USA. Kimchi has also been shown to reduce obesity, promote smaller waistlines by curbing appetites, and naturally boosting your metabolism. And so today you can get an exclusive offer. Buy 2 bottles of Kimchi One and get 1 bottle absolutely free. All you have to do is click the link below, or you can call Brightcore Nutrition at 888-404-6312. That number again is 888-404-6312. Give them a call now. Now, Senator Tom Cotton had a different take about this announcement. Why is lame duck Joe Biden trying to cram down a bad deal on Israel on his way out the door? The only deal should be unconditional surrender by Hamas, which is already nearly destroyed, and return of all hostages. Instead, we hear reports that Biden is demanding that Israel withdraw from key terrain in Gaza, release dozens of hardened terrorists for every one hostage, and get back only some hostages. Here's the actual deal to offer Hamas, and it's Patreon, Iran. You have 5 days to release all the hostages or we unleash hell. Now, according to the Times of Israel, they have a story up here already saying Arab officials, Trump envoys swayed Netanyahu more in one meeting than Biden did all year. Tense Jerusalem sit-down led to breakthrough in talks, with Israel and Hamas agreeing in principle to a hostage deal 2 days later. Sides now finalizing implementation details. And here's a photo, obviously, of Steve Witkoff and Netanyahu. Now, here's a post from Beta Sargon. She writes this: absolutely despicable to see the 3 people who totally failed to free American citizens taken hostage now take credit for the hostage deal achieved by Donald Trump. In the comment section, she says nothing empowered Hamas more than Biden and Blinken constantly and probably signaling to the enemies of the U.S. and Israel how much daylight there was between the 2 countries. This is just appalling. Biden asks how much credit he gives Trump, says the deal was his framework. Yeah, but you didn't get it signed. Totally nauseating. All right, so Leo Terrell had this to say, and it's a great question, and I think it's worthy of our attention here. And put your answer in the comment section to this as well. Question for anyone who can provide a logical answer: how can you have a ceasefire with a terrorist organization hell-bent on eliminating every Jew? Now, the way that I understand this question is very simple, and Americans really need to understand this more, because I think sometimes when we're out there and we are protesting all of this, we're forgetting that the people in the Middle East are not Americans. There are people in the Middle East, not even people, terrorists, evil in the Middle East, that they wake up in the morning with one mission and one mission only, and that is to destroy, annihilate, right? Erase an entire population off the face of the earth. So how do you deal with that, right? Well, there's only 1 or 2 ways. Number 1, you have to annihilate them first. Or 2, the more diplomatic approach, make sure they're broke and they have no money to fund their terrorist organization, which is why Joe Biden, this should actually be a stain on his legacy, whatever's left of it, because clearly Iran was emboldened during his presidency. The weakness we showed with the Afghanistan withdrawal showed leaders around the world that, hey, America's not in a position where they're really going to do anything. Now, let's make this whole thing a little bit more fun. Check this clip out from The View. This is Alyssa Griffin, who promises that if this deal gets done by Trump, that she would wear a MAGA hat. Yeah, I know. Watch this.
My point when I say I'm not going to be apocalyptic, it's not changing a tune. It's not making every single thing a 5-alarm fire. Yeah. If he does good, if he gets the Israeli hostages out, I promise I will wear a MAGA hat for one day on the show and say, thank you for doing it. Yeah. She'll knock it right off my head. But like you have to be able to cheer for wins when they happen. And then
now, obviously, depending on how you spin this entire announcement, she could probably argue that she doesn't have to wear the MAGA hat because not all of the hostages are coming home. So there's that. But I think there's some fun in playing that clip and I would love for her to do it just to troll the entire show, but I'm sure she won't. Okay, so let's move to the next story that is really big today, and that is Pam Bondi, the pick for Attorney General, attending her confirmation hearing. And yes, it's the same delusional Democrats that were questioning Pete Hegseth yesterday that questioned her today. So we're just going to show you a few highlights. And the one I'm going to start with is a big pressing question, especially for the MAGA world out there, about pardoning January 6 prisoners. Let's take a look at that.
Do you believe that the January 6 rioters who've been convicted of violent assaults on police officers should be pardoned?
Senator, if confirmed as Attorney General of the United States, the pardons, of course, fall under the president. But if asked to look at those cases, I will look at each case and advise on a case-by-case basis, just as I did my entire career as a prosecutor.
You also advise the president on pardons as part of your responsibility as Attorney General. And so I'm asking you, do you believe that those who've been convicted of the January 6 riot, violent assaults on our police officers, should be pardoned? That's a simple question.
So, Senator, I have not seen any of those files, of course. If confirmed and if asked to advise the president, I will look at each and every file. But let me be very clear in speaking to you. I condemn any violence on a law enforcement officer in this country.
Now, let's be honest here. She definitely is never going to say during a confirmation hearing that she's going to pardon all January 6 prisoners. We know that. Secondly, she's right to say that it's a hypothetical at this point because she hasn't even been confirmed. So why would she respond to a hypothetical question? Very good way of approaching this entire situation. So the point here is she's definitely qualified. So they're trying to do whatever they can to trip that nomination up, which we know isn't going to happen. Now, just like Pete Hegseth yesterday, these Democratic senators started to go on about two main issues. One is Kash Patel and the alleged enemy list that Trump has, and two, the prosecution of Liz Cheney and Jack Smith. And here she is responding to Adam Pencil Schiff about Liz Cheney. Watch.
I'm asking you, sitting here today, whether you are aware of a factual predicate to investigate Liz Cheney.
Senator, no one
Based
has
on
asked
what you
me
know.
to investigate Liz Cheney. That is a
The
hypothetical.
president has called for it publicly. You are aware of that, aren't you?
No one has asked me to investigate.
But the president
Liz.
has
We're
called-
also
the
worried about
president-
Liz Cheney,
the
Senator.
president has
You know what
called
we
for
should
this-
be worried about?
Ms. Bondi,
the
please
crime rate
answer
in
my
California
questions.
right now
You are
is
aware,
through the roof.
Ms. Bondi,
Your
my-
robberies
Ms.
are
Bondi,
87%
my
higher
question-
than the national
my question
average.
is this.
That's what I
My
want to
question
be
is this.
focused on, Senator.
Do you have the
if I'm
power to
confirmed
say
as
no to the
Attorney
president?
General.
She's spot on. You know, I find it funny, especially these Democratic senators. I think they were the worst actually today for Pam Bondi because they're so concerned about her and the possibility that Liz Cheney will be investigated. If you guys are so worried about her, just urge Joe Biden to issue her a pardon like he did with his son. And we don't have anything else to worry about. But what they should be worried about is the wildfires, the huge deficit in California, the failed high-speed rail that we wasted billions of dollars on, and of course the failed homelessness program that we've definitely had wasted taxpayer money on. So I don't know why they're so concerned about Liz Cheney in that way, unless Liz Cheney must be that guilty if they're putting that much attention on it. And let's go back to the pardons for January 6th participants. He's asking her about that as well. Watch.
Will it be your advice to the president? No, Mr. President, I need to go over them on a case-by-case basis. Do not issue blanket pardons. Will that be your advice to the president?
Senator, I have not looked at any of those files. If confirmed, I will look at the files
And
for
will
the
you be able to
pardons, as well
will
as
you
the
be able to
ongoing
review
investigation.
hundreds of cases on day one?
I will look at every file I am asked
Of course you
to
won't.
look
So
at.
will you advise the president?
Can I
will
answer
you-
the question?
Well, my question
I
is-
would have plenty of staff. You said, of course you want.
You'll be able to review
Listen, I'm
hundreds
not
of
going to
cases on the first
mislead
day?
this body nor you.
All right, let me ask another question. You don't want to answer that. Let me answer
You were
another question.
censured by
It will
Congress,
also-
Senator, for
it will
comments just
also-
like this that
it
are
will
so
also-
Yeah, it's fascinating that Adam Schiff is still in Congress. And let me remind you guys, he was a representative just last year. Now he's a senator. So, I mean, it's interesting how that all worked out for him. So he got a promotion for being censured. I find that interesting. Okay, that's how Democrats like to play it, I guess. Anyways, moving on. You also have this delusional senator from Hawaii who continues to press Pam Bondi about the weaponization of the DOJ, even though we know the current administration, Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, and all of these thugs clearly weaponized the DOJ, especially for anybody that participated on January 6th. So here is Pam Bondi sticking it to her. Watch this.
I ask you this. If President-elect Trump asks, suggests, or hints that you as Attorney General should investigate one of his perceived political enemies, would you do so?
Senator Hirono, I wish you had met with me. Had you met with me, we could have discussed many things and gotten to know.
I am listening to you now. Could you respond to the question?
Yeah, you were the only one who refused to meet with me, Senator. But what we would have discussed is that it is the job of the Attorney General to
I'm very
follow
happy to listen
the law.
to your responses under oath, Ms. Bondi. So I think it's really important to us that the Attorney General be independent of the White House. And you have a president-elect who considers the AG's office his law firm. I would like to know whether if the president suggests, hints, asks, that you as Attorney General should investigate one of his perceived enemies?
Senator, I certainly have not heard the president say that. But what I will tell you is 2/3 of Americans have lost faith in the Department of Justice. And it's statements like that, I believe,
Ms.
that make
Bondi.
people continue to lose faith. If I am confirmed as Attorney General, it will be my job
Getting
to
on
not
to my
only
next
keep
question,
America
you're not
safe,
responding.
but restore integrity to that department.
Why don't we
and that's
move
what
on
I
to
plan
something
on
that
doing
you said?
every single day as Attorney General.
On August
And that's how it pretty much went during her confirmation hearing with the Democrats. Again, they pressed her on, will she prosecute Jack Smith? Will she prosecute Liz Cheney? Will she allow Kash Patel to enact his enemy list, et cetera, et cetera? Will you pardon J6 prisoners? Those are pretty much the main issues. Of course, the Democrats, once again, made a fool of themselves because they're not actually focused on real issues. For an example, what about the weaponization of the DOJ against the Catholic Church? What about the weaponization of the DOJ against, parents at school board meetings? What about that? What about these illegal migrants and the gangs from Venezuela? What about the cartel and the fentanyl coming across the border? What about things like that and what you plan to do to prosecute those criminals? They're not talking about any of that, of course, and that's why they've lost all credibility. Now it's time to hear from you guys in the comment section below by answering this question. Do you believe Trump will be successful in ending the war between Hamas and Israel? Because we know right now this ceasefire deal is nowhere near an end to that war. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Now, we want to know, what is the deal with California, and particularly Gavin Newsom, who's continuing to do interviews with left-leaning organizations and blaming Elon Musk and Trump. And once again this morning, he spoke with Jen Psaki, started to panic over the misinformation coming from Musk and Trump. And of course, we had to react to that and debunk a bunch of the lies. Of course, more emerging details about the incompetence of Mayor Karen Bass. If you guys want to check out that video, all you have to do is click on it because it's coming up right now.